Oh my God, that worked way too well. We used to say Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in like second grade. That was the key word, so like everybody quiet. Hi, everybody. Sorry for those who have to stand in the back. There are some seats if you want. Anyway, my name's David Kaneda. We're going to talk about Sass and Compass today and abstracting CSS. Just so you guys know, I made JQTouch a couple years ago, a little jQuery plugin for mobile stuff. I spent the last 3 years working at Sencha as the creative director, working on Sencha Touch, stuff like that. Hopefully you've heard of some of these things. You more enterprise-y Java guys probably haven't, but we come from different worlds. I'm sorry. Funny story, I actually wrote JQTouch about a block and a half from here. I used to live on Front and Market, so this is very nostalgic coming back here. Not that you care, but it feels good to me. So, as you guys may have seen if you were in here for the last session, HTML5 is the new shiny, but I'm going to be talking mostly about CSS, and CSS3 specifically. This is just something I find, and you know, you Java devs, you could just replace JavaScript with Java or C or whatever you want to talk about. But this is what I find in a lot of web apps that are coming out these days. I go into the project, and this is how I find your JavaScript code. It's all nice and tidy and modular and great. And then I look inside your style sheets, and it feels something like this. This is actually my roommate's room. I took this photo like 2 months ago. I swear to God, he lives this way. He lives like this. I don't know how. Anyway, so I'm going to be focusing mostly on Sass and Compass as well. There are these two other ones called Less and Stylus that are very cool. All of them are great. I prefer Sass and Compass because early on it had some color functions that the others didn't. Now they're all about equal. There are some minute differences between them all. But what I'm going to cover, I think, will mostly couldn't be applied to all of them, all three. So whatever you want to use. Sass is in Ruby, Less is in JavaScript, Stylus is in JavaScript. I don't know if Stylus can run in the front end in the browser. I think you might have to use like Hammer Node or something like that. Less can be run on the back end, meaning Node.js or something like that, and in the browser. But that's not really a good practice anyway, but it makes for cool demos. Anyway, Sass and Compass. If you enterprise-y types think I'm talking about like site as a service or whatever that is, and geolocation, you're like in the wrong room. It's all about CSS. It's all about UI. And this is basically the best way I can explain it. The same way you would look at PHP or Gwt or Ruby or whatever you want compared to HTML is the same way that you can look at Sass compared to Compass. So it's taking something that is sent down to the browser in a static way, and it's making it dynamic on the back end. Now, we do it in a sort of compile time way, so it's not dynamic like PHP. But anyway, you get the idea. We add things like variables, functions. We're going to get into all that fun stuff in a second. I should say I'm not going to be that thorough in this presentation. I kind of think it's more fun for people. I mean, are you developers? Yeah, okay. It's more fun to like see somebody use something, I think, maybe write a little code, than actually just go feature by feature by feature. But this guy, Brandon Mathis, does go in a presentation at FOWD. He did go feature by feature, and it's amazing. In like an hour, he talks like a mile a minute, and he covers like every possible feature and function and stuff you can use in Sass and Compass. So there's going to be a link at the end of this that has links to all the things I'm talking about, including this. If this stuff interests you, I highly encourage you to check out his presentation. It's probably a little more thorough, but we're going to make a button. That's going to be my thing. I kind of find that buttons are for CSS what to-do lists are for MVC frameworks. It is the standard, it's the easiest, you just throw one together and it makes a good demo. So last thing I'll say, if you want to follow along, I doubt you will, but if you want to get started with this stuff, literally you just have to run one command. It's sudo gem install compass. Well, you have to have Ruby, so all you Windows people, find an installer or something, I don't know. You should be on a Mac. I mean, but it's one command. This actually gives you both Sass and Compass at the same time, so you don't have to worry about dependencies, all that stuff. And yeah, that's all you need to run to do exactly what I'm going to be doing right now. And stuff we're going to be talking about, which I'm sure if you've never heard of this stuff won't make any sense right now. Variables, functions, nesting, mixins, and extend, add extend. Add extend, I think, is the only one that is pretty much specific to Sass and Compass right now, but there are ways to hack it in the other two as well. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna, this is a little scary. I'm used to normally giving, so I've been for the past 2 years probably talking about Sencha Touch and various things about Sencha Touch. So I'm very used to the slide deck thing and people falling asleep in my presentations. So I'm going to try live coding. I'm new to it, so bear with me. All right. I'm a button. This is a button. I'm sure you guys have seen buttons before. As you can see by the title, it is a mildly attractive button. I would never ship one like this. But it makes for a decent demo, so. How's that for readability? Good? Good. Yeah, that's not bad. New theme, I think tomorrow, very nice color scheme. Anyway, so, you guys, how many of you work with CSS? Oh, sweet. How many of you have tried abstracting systems already, Sass, Compass, Stylus? Oh, that's perfect. Okay, so for the ones who have, which are few, and I apologize, we're gonna cover some basics. Hopefully you see some tricks and stuff that will actually help you in your own stuff. But yeah, so here's our HTML. Actually, let me pull this out. Brian, stop tweeting. I am just constantly connected to Twitter. All right, and then we're going to get fancy, and then we're going to hide the sidebar. And we have HTML and CSS. Really simple. Everybody gets what's going on here, right? Basic HTML page. And then we have a little button class. I made the font size really big so you guys can see it. We have some padding, border, and the border is like a little darker version of the background color, that blue there. The actual text, for some reason, is dark blue. Is that real? It is real, okay. And then we've made a background gradient with our WebKit gradient, and of course omitted every other vendor prefix, because who cares? And then we say on hover, we're going to actually flip that gradient. So we're just reversing it, which again, as a UI designer, don't just flip your gradient to make it recessed. But for this purpose, we are. And then active, oh, I'm sorry, no, that's the active state, flipping it. We actually just get a little brighter as we hover. So we already have 39 lines of CSS. It looks a little gross. Here's the stuff we don't hit very well. We are only supporting WebKit right now by using that gradient. That's kind of shitty. You can decide whether or not you want to support something like Opera, whether that 1% of traffic is that valuable to you. But, Mozilla, they're actually doing all right. So, you should support more than WebKit. You also run into specificity issues later on, but obviously this is a very tiny sample, so it's hard to show that. And then you have this issue of changing colors, and this is probably one of the most annoying bits, right? I mean, you have all of these hard programmed colors, and even though they're all related to each other, it's just a blue button, they're all shades of blue, they're all different hex values, right? So if we want to change this to, let's say, an orange button, that's going to be a bitch. That's tough, right? And I'm sure you guys working with CSS have run into this before, where you want to change something and you end up searching for hex values. It's a pain. So let's sassify it. Yeah, it's totally a verb. All right, so we're going to go in the terminal. Hopefully you guys, this doesn't like freak you out. Freaked me out a little bit. Okay, we're in our button bonanza folder, CD2, yep. Okay, so we're in this new folder. What do I want to do? So first off, I ran my sudo gem install compass, so we have all those things sort of at our disposal. And so the first thing I can run is compass init. And that's just going to give me a nice little directory to work with. So again, Compass and Sass are Ruby. And I don't even really know Ruby that well. I'm not good with Ruby, but I can use this. Really, the only Ruby you have to write is this little config file. And again, that one command, compass init, basically writes it for you. But you see there are some extra options. You can uncomment in here, whether or not you want line comments, stuff like that. Anywho, let's see. So I'm going to throw our index.html. I'm just going to copy that into the folder. I'm going to take this one.css and put it in here in the Sass folder. And I'm just going to get rid of all this other junk. We don't need it. Style sheets, I'm going to get rid of all those. And then I'm just going to update the style sheet in the HTML file to point to our new one. And I'm going to call it 2.css. Everybody following along with my renaming files and everything very complicated? So basically, we just moved the one CSS file in here. All I'm going to do is rename it to 2.scss. And essentially now, I can come in with the terminal, and I can just run compass compile. And it's going to take that SCSS file and make a CSS file out of it. Except now we have some comments on where those rules are being generated from. But it's all still basically the exact same thing, right? Another thing I could do, just to show you the difference. I told you I wasn't going to be great at this. Turn on the output style, and I'm going to set that to compressed. Come back to the terminal, and I'll just run it one more time, compass compile. We come in here, and now our CSS file has all been made one line. And all the white space has been trimmed out, right? And no comments. So already in about 30 seconds, we've highly optimized our CSS file. Huge benefit right there. But for readability, I'm going to come back into that config, change that back, and we're going to work like that from now on. Another great feature, Compass, Compass Watch. We can just run Compass Watch. And from now on, every time we make a change, it's going to update that CSS file. And as you've already probably noticed, because Sass is a superset of CSS, we can just dupe the CSS file and change the extension. And that's basically all it takes to get started. It accommodates, it accounts for every single feature, every potential thing in CSS. So all it does, all Sass does, is add things on top of those. So let's get started. And I'm going to open up my cheat sheet. All right. So first thing we're going to do is set up some variables. Variables in CSS? Wow. So we'll create one that's button color. And let's just grab a color. Let's grab one from this space background. Yeah, that's a nice blue. Okay. So we're going to put our button color in there, right? And I'm going to close this. And then, let's see. So immediately, we could set the background, oh, that's weird, of this button to that button color. And that would be really easy. Where'd you go? Oh, sorry. Go away. Okay, so yeah, we have that color in there. Not a lot of benefit when you're only using it once, but second thing, I suppose that was a quick one, is we have functions. And most importantly to me as a designer, we have color functions. So we can take that button color and we can darken it by 10% for the border. And just like that, it's ready to go. Now we come to the gross gradient syntax. So one nice thing about, oh, and just so you guys see, this is how the CSS is looking now. So you can see it's taken that color. Sorry, if I go too fast, somebody just yells stop or whatever. It's taken that button color we defined, and it's actually darkened it for us 10%, created this variable here. So another nice thing about Compass is it includes, by default, a whole bunch of mixins already predefined, and we'll get into what mixin really is in a second, predefined for CSS3. Now this is like wicked cool. So if we write @include, that's sort of how we bring in a mixin background, and then it actually also has a function set up for linear gradient, so we can just say linear gradient, right? And now I'm just gonna look at my cheat sheet for a second. And then we use the actual gradient syntax instead of WebKit's crazy one, so we just pass in the direction first, right? And then we're gonna use, we basically go from like a light blue to a dark blue near the bottom, like super simple. So we're gonna say lighten that button color. I don't know why I went with such a long name for this. We'll say 5% to darken that button color 5%. And then we're just gonna knock this background out. We can take out this to do because we just did it. We don't need that guy either. And now we come over here to our CSS and we've caused an error. Important. If you want to use all of the lovely things built into Compass, you have to import Compass. Compass also has a really nice error reporting system, which is why I did that. But okay, here's where the awesome comes in. Look at that. Nobody wants to write this, right? Nobody wants to write the same exact thing 6 times over with different prefixes. And again, as we start to change colors, stuff like that, it gets even more annoying. So, already huge benefit. I swear, if you give this stuff a try, if you write plain CSS right now and you like working with any of the CSS3 features, you will never go back, hands down. I mean, it doesn't have to be Sass, again, less stylus, whatever, but you will never write plain CSS after this. After trying it, not after seeing this presentation. That would be egotistical. So we're going to do the same thing for the hover state. We're going to say @include. Okay, that white text thing is weird. It's making me reconsider this theme. Same thing, we're going to go top. Actually, I should just copy and paste. I'm a great programmer. But instead, we're going to shift everything up to brighten it a little bit. So the lighten is actually going to go up to 8, and the darken will only go to 2. Did I do that right? It gets brighter when we hover, right? One more time, we're going to take all this stuff, throw it down here. And this time, all I'm going to do is switch from top to bottom. Again, just to reverse it for the click, right? So, and we could also, let's see. Yeah, we could also say the text color, for now, we'll just say is a darkened version of the button color. Let's go 20 just to make sure it's readable. That might not be enough. Right, so now we've basically already gotten back to where we were before. It took a couple minutes, but we don't have one hard programmed color in our CSS anymore. So all of a sudden, if I want to say, instead of blue, my button is, let's say red. Oh, that's going to look awful. Hold on. Let's say this sort of golden orangey thing. And we save that. Again, I'm just going to come back over here just so we can see what it's looking like now, right? All full with all the gradients. Our button's orange, right? And how easy is that? Way better than finding all those colors. Let's go further. I'm cheating, hold on. Oh, nesting. That's just a nice little thing for organizing your style sheets. So Compass supports nesting. So if, let's say we have one of those buttons and we're going to hack a span element to be like an arrow icon or something in the button, we can just write the span right in the rule of the button. And I don't know, let's just say color red for now. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like, it'll sort of fold it out into button space span. And you don't want to go crazy with the nesting. Some people, when they get started with Sass, I see they basically start to replicate their DOM structure, their tree-like DOM structure within the Sass, and that's real bad. I'm not getting into CSS performance stuff today, but one, I do have a whole bunch of links for the CSS performance on the link I'm going to show you at the end, just because I can't give a CSS presentation without them. Anyway, and I think Jonathan Snook recently came out with a great book, Smack CSS or whatever. All good stuff. I mean, if you work with CSS, you should keep the performance in mind, but I'm not going to go too deep into it now. What I will show is that we can actually take all these different states of the button. Now you'll see automatically, because we put the span inside of the dot button, it added a space in between as it sort of expanded the rule, right? We don't want to do that with the hover state. So Sass has this nice little shortcut where the ampersand just automatically refers to the parent. So we can do that, and we just throw that in there. And I'll do the same thing with the active state. So again, that ampersand simply refers to the parent. I'm going to take out some comments. Right, and then we come over here. Oh, I killed it again. And I have poorly nested. Wait, what did I do? 47. Ah. Okay. Oops, I typed something. Okay, there we go. So again, no real change to our CSS. It just means our style sheet, our Sass style sheet now, is a little better organized. We can clearly see what the button is and what the states of the button are because they're all contained in one rule. It's kind of nice. From here, all right, let's talk about making our own Mixin. This is where it's going to get a little tricky. So a Mixin is basically, it's almost like a function, except it's meant to spit out CSS, raw CSS. So we can define a Mixin just by saying @Mixin, and I'm going to call it buttonize, right? And then we just open brackets like it's a normal CSS rule. And I'm actually just going to take all of this stuff, chuck it into buttonize, and even this parent reference element, I'm putting it in the Mixin, which is kind of kooky. So I can call the Mixin include buttonize from within the element, and our CSS is going to be exactly the same. I haven't done anything too fancy. I just basically moved all of the output to be coming from that Mixin. Where the Mixins get cool is that I can actually pass in variables to a Mixin, just like you would a function. So let's say all of our buttons have a color, and I can make it have a default. So let's just grab that orange color, right? And then we can, let me just call it button color so I don't have to rename a million things. Thinking ahead. And so again, we have our orange button.
What would happen if you did not delete that first line?
If I did not delete that? They would not, so the scoping system, I mean, there's like a million little granular things you could learn about the scoping system, but basically within the Mixin, it would only respect the parameter. But of course, there's a ton of different ways you can look at it and manipulate it. I'll talk more about the variable chaining in a second. So I need my HTML for just a second. So we're going to add a second button. Here's where we're going to get crazy. Button 2. And we're going to come down here, button 2. And we can just do the same thing again. We can say @include buttonize, but this time we're going to pass in a color. And we'll go back to blue for this one. You guys missed the great sound effects that it makes when I suck up a color. You can hear it, right? No, all right. Oh, you got the headphones on. All right. Sorry. 2 buttons. One's blue, one's orange. Hover states, click states, easy peasy, right? Can anybody name the horrible issue with the method I just used? Okay, I shouldn't have asked even. I mean, that's why I'm here. But bloat, yes. Yeah, it came in a little late. But yeah, we're repeating a whole lot of rules that we actually don't have to be, right? So there are a couple ways around this. There's the normal way, which is using multiple CSS classes. So we could have a base class, which is just .button, and then we could have something like .red or .orange or .blue, and then sort of combine the classes as we want to go. Problem with that is, and again, I can't really demo this well, but it gets more and more troublesome as your rules get more and more specific. And if you have to support IE6, hey, we're at an enterprise conference. You guys do have to support IE6. You can't use multiple classes. Oh, IE6. I haven't thought about you in forever. So what can we do? So one more feature, Sass and Compass. I'll stop throwing out hardcore features soon, and I also will aim to get, they are kind of like Portal, aren't they? I'll aim to end kind of soon so that we can get to some questions. Actually, I'm already, wow. Very awesome feature built into Sass and Compass. We could create a class, simple class, and just call it base button. And from that base button, we could actually take a bunch of these rules and just sort of throw them in there. So we know some of these rules are going to apply to every button. So I don't want to take any of the rules that include color, because right now color is dynamic within that mixin, right? So you know, both of those classes for each button need those rules that include color. And I think this will become more clear once you see the output. But basically, I can throw these into a class called baseButton, and then I could come into my button class and say @extend baseButton. Now what extend does as opposed to Mixin, Mixin basically just takes the rules that come out of the Mixin and chucks them into the rule you're calling it from. Extend simply merges the selector names. So you can see it took the button class and brought just the name of it up into the selector of the base button, right? Because these rules are shared. And in terms of bytes now, you're looking at adding this many bytes instead of this many bytes. Much better, right? What's even wackier is that you can call extend from the Mixin. So I'm going to throw that there. I'm going to take some more of these things here. Also, I think border radius has been standardized. Yeah, we'll get into some other stuff in a bit. Well, might as well do it now. So we can also use, again, Compass has all of the CSS mixins, so let's just do box shadow. Oh, this is one of my favorite features. RGBA, you could just pass a hex value. And the opacity, right? That's so much easier than 0, 0. Anyway, 0, as I do it anyway. 0.2, 0.1 M, 0.2 M. RGBA doesn't work in IE6? No. Somebody just said that? Oh, okay. Oh, God. Oh, box shadow, no. Yeah, right. All right, you can't really see that, but there are some nice shadows, right? Somebody just say sweet for the shadows. And Compass knows implicitly, and Compass is updated often, so you don't have to worry too much about this stuff. Compass knows that there's a standards tag for box shadow, that Microsoft has no idea what you're talking about, and that WebKit and Mozilla get it, right? So it just spits out the WebKit and Mozilla rules. Whereas for gradients, it knows Opera, Microsoft, everybody gets gradients, probably in a little tweaked way. Yeah?
Not box shadow, but will it handle filters if you do opacity for IE?
So interestingly, there's a variable, I think, like Compass ships with some global variables that you can kind of override. So let's try it. I don't know how this is going to come out, but I know where you're going with it. I'll say that. So yes, bam, right there. Yeah. If you're like me and you hate supporting Microsoft, except Windows Phone 7 is awesome and will save us all. For you. You can do, it's something like include, I'm just not even going to try, fallback for IE something, set it to false, and it won't spit that out. Include experimental support from Microsoft something. It's a long variable name. Interestingly, there's another variable that's off by default, which you can turn on, which will actually use the SVG hack for gradients. It makes sense that it's off by default because it's a performance hog. You can barely use that thing, but it's there if you want it. So anyway, yeah, it does opacity the way you want. And again, you could see, like, I can just guess the API because I know it's just going to be @include opacity or whatever the normal CSS3 rule would be. Anyway, I'm totally getting off track. Okay. So bam, bam, bam. Yeah, so that's pretty solid. So we have, you know, it's not a huge savings. We have 60 lines of Sass to 80 lines of CSS. As your project gets bigger than 2 buttons, this gets to be, more and more useful. Let's see, just for a little fun thing, let's show another way you could use variables. Sass also deals with whitespace pretty well, so I like putting commas on new lines. So we'll just add one called pill shape, and we'll set it to false by default. And let's just use a new button for this one, button 3. And when we include the mixin, we can even we can pass in our variables names. So if we just wanted to use the default color, we could just say pill shape true. Now we have to make it actually do something, so we'll come in here and we can basically say if pill shape at include border radius. I'm in the habit of writing at include border radius, but I'm pretty sure everybody's just using the unprefix now, but oh, I added a semicolon there. And as we all know, we just make up a giant number because that's the only way to make sure the edge is round. Oh, HTML. All right, so now we got a round button. And just for fun, let's get a new color on the board. No, I want a green. Nobody uses green in their icons. That's kind of weird, right? Anyway, all right, fine. Let's do yellow. Oh, good, this will show a little thing. Feature. All right, we're gonna grab this yellow. I think I just heard somebody catch on to where I'm headed next. So you can also mix named and non-named arguments if they're in the right order and all that. Okay, so we have our button. The text is not so readable on this one, right? Actually, I was using darken anyway, but let's do a function. So a function is kind of like a mixin, except there's no expected rules that are to be spat out. You can return a value like you would normally return a value in any other programming language. So right above our buttonized mixin, we're going to create a function called color by background. And this function will only take one variable, which is the background color. I'll just call it color for now. And basically, we'll just say, I'm going to get a little crazy now. We're going to do return, and we're going to use if as a function. You'll notice for that pill shape, we used if with the at symbol in front of it. So basically, there's 2 ways. This inline if is simply a way to, evaluate a Boolean and just spit out one value or another. So it's nice for quick, easy things like this. So we can determine the lightness of the color that we're getting passed in Sass. And we're just going to say is greater than 30. That's usually like a good sort of readability measure. It's not perfect, but if the lightness is greater than 30, then we're going to return lighter. So we're going to want to darken the text. So we're going to darken that color by 50, let's say. And otherwise, we want to lighten the color by 50. And essentially, this is going to give us pretty much black or white, depending on the background color. And then this is how we use our color by background. Because we defined it as a function and not a mixin, we can just use it in line. So wherever I have that color declaration, yeah. We're going to do color by background and the button color. All right, so, and then this is one of my major peeves with Sass and Compass is the lightness function is actually not great at determining lightness. So we're going to have to go even lighter to see what this does. I don't know why I insist on picking colors for my dock. Hold on. That's pretty light. Oh, true that. Thank you. Yeah, I'll just keep making this lighter all day long. See, this screwed up anyway. All right, we'll just go super dark so you get the idea. Bam. Now we have the text automatically turning light because we have a dark background. Makes a lot of sense, right? Super easy. We can even abstract one level further. I'm just like going into Inception land now. We're going to make a Mixin. What am I doing? Called color by background. We can name it the same thing because we're sloppy, whatever. Same thing, it's going to just take that one color. It's going to set the color of the text the same way we were doing before. So color by background, color. I realize I'm just like kind of writing the same words over and over again in different ways. This looks so messy right now. That's like color by background, color, color by background, color, color. But we're also going to give it a little text shadow because we are designers and we love that little beveled text effect. So we're going to take this, basically this same conditional. I'll just steal it. And include, what am I doing? So if it's a light color, we want a, thank you. We want a dark shadow, and I guess we'll go down with it, 0.1 em, 0.2 em. However, we could do an else, and we can say if it's a light color, I'm sorry, if it's a dark color for the text, we want a light shadow, and it's going to go up instead of down. If I didn't mention already, this session requires some CSS knowledge. This is coming a little late, but I'm just skipping over like how you do text shadow and stuff because, all right, it's way too late for that. I didn't include it. Who's saying that? Come help me. All right, so where do we want that? Okay, wherever we had the color by background before, I'm going to take out that whole line. Actually, I'm just going to replace that first part with @include. That's basically it. Whoa, blur value. Who said what about requiring CSS knowledge? All right, we're just going to say 0 because we want that sharp sort of beveled effect. And too far. Yeah, I'm just used to using M's, so I'm sorry. All right, fine. We'll use pixels. And I'm just going to do 2 because you can see it, but it should be 1. All right. And I, of course, got them out of order as well. Okay. So we have that little nice bevel effect, right? We get a little shadow. You guys get what I'm talking about, right? This little text thing. I'm sure you've seen the effect. Okay, last piece, and then I think we'll move on to some Q&A and stuff. How are we doing so far? Everybody following along? Picking up what I'm putting down? All right, I just checked Twitter by accident. Like, that's how innate it is. Oh my God. Wow. On stage. Oh. I'm like, oh, break in between tasks, might as well. All right. So, partials. I write it as I say it. We're going to move all of that stuff into buttonize.scss. I'm going to bring you in here. This thing's a little messy. Essentially, we want to keep, we're going to take out that stuff. We're going to leave all of our new functions and great mixins and things. And we're going to take out this stuff. So we can make files that only have mixins and variables and functions in them, no actual CSS, no actual rules. And then we can import them. And because I prefixed that, we can actually just combine it here. Because I prefixed it with the underscore, it's not going to spit out an actual CSS file for that one we just made. So here we can get rid of all those things. And now this is our CSS file. And now this is clean, right? And this is nice and easy to work with and makes sense. And we know if we want to change a default, a core style to our buttons, we can go into buttonize. Right? And that's pretty much going to spit out the exact same thing. And then this is getting really deep. This is sort of how I went about creating this stuff in Sencha Touch. I will also, for things like this, we still have this hard color in here. I will actually have the parameters for my mixins point to variables. So let's just say base button color. I realize this seems like I am abstracting way too far at this point, but there is value, especially as you get into UI systems that involve hundreds of widgets and things like that. So we're going to paste it there, and then we're going to say default. Right, and so then back in this land, actually, let's just go here. Sorry. And I'll take out that yellow. So we have our 3 buttons. We have one we're passing in a special color, one we're making pill-shaped. And it looks like this, right? But because we added this little default command over here, we can actually overwrite that variable before we bring the file in. So if we were to, in our other file, write base button color, and we set it to that yellow, we're actually replacing both instances at once. We're changing the default of what that Mixin creates. And there's other benefits to this as well in terms of being modular, just like in JavaScript, and we're getting all of these great systems for being modular now. You can do the same thing in your CSS. You can bring in projects that are completely not your own, that you submodule in via Git, and you don't want to mess with them. And have full control over what their defaults are, all of that kind of stuff. Even Compass, actually, Compass itself uses this kind of system. So we could say things like default border radius, let's say 20 pixels. And then if we were to, on our one button, just say @include border radius with no parameters, it's going to be 20 pixels. Wait, I'm passing in buttonize as well. Let's just take that out. So our top one's going to be 20 pixels border radius, whereas if I had done that without that default variable, it's going to be 5. It's the default. I think that might be it for the live demo. Hold on one second. Let me check the cheat sheet. Yeah, we covered extend. Good. We even did a little color by background. That's nice. Okay. In conclusion, no, I'm just kidding. So for those of you who have already used Sass and Compass, or who like to use it, or for those of you who got inspired by this and want to go try it out now, I have another project, pimping my own projects, of course, called Compass Recipes. where it's sort of just predefined mixins and variables and things like that. Let me give you a quick sample. Have any of you seen Leah Vero's CSS3 patterns gallery? Yeah? No? They're awesome. There's basically, you can create background patterns with CSS3 gradients. It's sort of hacky, but it's cool. Don't do it on Android. But where should I go? MOOCs? Yeah. So unfortunately, my GitHub Pages version isn't working, so his is. But let me give you some. Actually, I have a local one, which I'm sure will come out all broken and whatnot. But nope. Okay, so here's a small sampling, but like we have all of these patterns, even this background noise, right, is all built in Sass and Compass. So you can say things like include background blueprint grid and actually define the width of and height of those grid patterns, of those grid marks. You can define the colors that you're using within that grid. All of it is going to intelligently use whatever variables you pass to it to create the rest of the variables. We even have a tartan pattern that you could, you can pass in the spacing and all of the different variables that would create that. This carbon fiber, if any of you have used JQ Touch, you will recognize this is like our banner thing. And recently in the newer JQ Touch I've been working on, it's all dynamic now because of Sass and Compass and using this Mixin. You can't see that at all. That's rough. It looks cool. It's like carbon fiber.
So this is a Mixin that you created for Sass?
Yeah, and Compass. So yeah, they're all predefined and you can sort of bring in and mix and match and use whatever you want. The goal that I'm trying to get to with Compass recipes is to create a more Photoshop-like system of layer effects so that you could say bevel, emboss, cut out, that type of stuff. The hard part about it is all of these effects in CSS are basically hacks, right? Aside from what Adobe's doing, which is awesome, I'm hoping for like multiply and that sort of stuff soon. They're all sort of bastardizations of drop shadows, of box shadow, text shadow, before and after elements and that sort of thing. So I'm trying to come up with an intelligent way to combine effects right now. So if you were to say include bevel, blah blah blah, give it the depth and all that, and then after that say include drop shadow, unfortunately the bevel would be overwritten at this point. It's an interesting problem in CSS. What's that?
What's the base practical level for IE version that the person have to use to be able to modify this?
What's that? Oh, so if I wasn't clear, all of this is compile time. So it's been compiling every time we save the file, et cetera. So it's just making a CSS file.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, for these features and recipes? Oh God, not even close. No, this is like a mind experiment of myself that is not in any way meant to be compatible with IE. I mean, there's stuff in here you could use, but you'd have to figure out your support on your own. For now, this project's a total mess. I'll be honest, but I think it's building up to something cool and something that we kind of need. And I look forward to cleaning it up soon now that I have a lot of free time. Yeah, I mean, I can tell you pattern's not going to work, shadow's not going to work. Shapes will work for the most part. Interestingly enough, I have some shortcuts for Google Web Fonts. Those are going to work great. And then even some of I think I have a shortcut for web font icons. There's like a technique that is coming up right now using fonts for icons. That I think would actually work, because that's the one thing IE6 did like actually decently was web fonts. But yeah, it's not for IE people. It's barely for WebKit and Firefox people, to be honest. But it's a fun project. So that's it. Here's the URL with all the stuff. Take it down. There's also like tons of, not tons, I think there's like 7, but articles from like, Souders and Paul Irish, and there's so many good articles out there on CSS performance and that kind of stuff. It's definitely worth checking out. That is the one thing that, as you've seen, I hope, if you abstract and you sort of do it the right way, there's actually no difference than if you were handwriting the code, except you're way, way faster. However, if you're new to it and you don't really know what you're doing, it's very easy to fall into a trap where you're creating selectors that are way too long or repeating rules or, So in the beginning, as you're starting out, I would recommend look at the CSS file that's being generated often and only put it into that compressed mode before you go into production. Because you want to make sure what you're writing makes sense and all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know of or have any suggestions for any more full stack CSS frameworks? So ones that would give you like warning messages, warning buttons?
Yeah, so in less, I think the big popular one right now is Bootstrap. They have a great one. In the Sass and Compass world, actually, Foundation is a really good one. I was actually thinking about starting to contribute to Foundation to try to get to the point where Bootstrap is. I think you don't have that sort of thing in Stylus. TJ from the sort of Node community created Nib, which I think originally he wanted to get into UI, but then decided it's too much scope, which I think everybody hits that point at a certain point. But Foundation and Bootstrap, great projects, yeah.
As you use more and more inheritance and the rules become longer in the CSS engine to read, how does that affect performance?
Not well. So don't do that. But that's sort of a more sort of core CSS philosophy thing. And that's something where that book from Jonathan Snook is really good about. Like for myself, I have this general idea of, use a class name. If not, use class name, then element name. If you need to scope something, do a class name at the top. But normally, a rough rule of thumb is don't go more than 3 levels deep.
So, so the more and more inheritance using Sass, that would cause that to get deeper, right? So you want to limit the amount of inheritance?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you talking about combining selectors via the comma?
Oh, that's what inheritance. No, okay. I was actually talking about.
Yeah. That's like the nesting. If you nest too deep, don't nest more than 3 levels. I actually linked to within that link GitHub's style sheet guide, which is actually pretty solid compared to their JavaScript guide. Any other questions? Yeah.
Say you're already using some libraries like jQuery UI that just give you a bunch of static CSS files.
Yep.
And obviously you want to customize them a little bit. What's the best way to do that with Sass, where you're basically extending? So
it's a little messy. I mean, really, if they don't use any preprocessor or anything, the best thing you can do is just, like I did, dupe it, rename it to .scss, start replacing things with variables where you see hard set things, and then put it on GitHub because people are going to use the hell out of it, I swear. You'd be surprised, though, how many projects now are starting out this way. Like the new HTML5 boilerplate CSS is written in Sass. All of Bootstrap, all of the Twitter stuff is less. You'd be surprised, like you can find, as you start to scour source code for projects, usually this is becoming more and more common. Yeah?
I noticed that there is a Java-based implementation of Jazz called Jazz. Do you have any kind of gut feeling how mature that implementation is?
Wait, called what?
Jade Jazz. Jade Sass.
Jade Sass.
Implementation for Sass.
I hate it when something like Sass or whatever gets implemented in a language it wasn't built in. It always sucks. It's like, and it creates a mess. Like originally, there was a Ruby version of less as well, and a JavaScript, and they tried to just keep them both going at the same time, and it was a nightmare. And they decided to just go with the JavaScript version. I don't know if that answers your question, but that being said, if somebody writes like an amazing Sass parser in Node, that would be lovely because I'm tired of Ruby. I'm over it. And every other part of my workflow can be boiled into Node or Hammer or whatever. And Ruby, like Sass, this is the one thing I'm like hanging on to. I'm even contemplating porting that whole recipes project into Stylus just to switch into JavaScript.
So do you have any recommendation for outstructing CSS with Java platform?
On Java? I mean, I know, like, if you're creating web apps with Java, and to be fair, I know jack diddly about Java. Before, like 2 years ago, before I moved in with my roommate who runs a Gwit project, I thought Java was this old archaic thing that nobody even used, it like Perl or something. Yeah, you still write Perl, I can tell. Gwit. I mean, Gwit, to be honest, the whole web community, or the sort of front end, renegade Wild Wild West front end community, is getting all of these tools now, like CoffeeScript and Sass and all of this stuff, which is all great. But Gwit does it fantastically. I mean, if I didn't hate Java with the passion of 1,000 suns, I would use Gwit. Like, Gwit has CSS variables. It has, and it actually does things because it knows your DOM and your CSS and your state basically at all times. Gwit does performance optimizations that like this can't even come close to. But that being said, they have very similar feature sets. What's in Gwit and what this provides. Even though I still like this better. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment on that. We were doing an evaluation for this a couple of months ago, and less will run within Java's JavaScript engine.
Oh yeah, use that little JavaScript runtime. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we ended up going less.
All right, thanks everybody for coming. Much appreciated.